Hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. I hope I am visible, audible. Hello T-Rex. Hi Simran. Good evening. Hello Bhavesh. Good evening. Hi Shaunak. Good evening. Hello Smriti, Sumit. Hi Himani. Thank you Simran, thank you. I am also very excited. Hi Piyush. All right. So this is on popular demand, right? A lot of students had been telling me that they wanted to know about some essential terms of for various genres, philosophy, political philosophy, art and literature. So I thought, why not have a series that actually discusses such terms. Now the thing is that philosophy in itself is so vast that it is of course not possible for me to cover all the terms, but yes, I have tried to cover all the popular terms, right? The ones that figure in your RC passages. So if you have, let's say if you're enrolled with Rodha and if you have attended some of my sessions, plus if you have taken some of the topic tests on our class portal, some sectional tests, then you must have encountered these terms, right? So these are the kinds of terms that we are going to discuss today. Okay. Thank you, Bhavesh. Thank you. Yes, Simran, I said that, but I thought that this was a pressing concern for a lot of my students. So I thought, why not have this session instead? Right? So I changed it at the last minute yesterday. Thank you, Ankesh. Thank you. Last week, yes, I was unwell, so my throat is still not completely healed. So I caught that, the viral fever that's going on. So, yeah. Hello to everybody. Good evening. Thank you. And let's see. So, when we talk about philosophy, which philosophy are we really talking about? We are actually talking about Western philosophy. Now, I know that it doesn't feel right because you might feel, oh, Eastern philosophy also has a lot to say, and you're absolutely right. The thing is that because the West has had a lot of influence on the world, and they were able to spread that influence on others. There are a lot of surviving texts related to their philosophies. They codified them, they wrote them down. That is why Western philosophy dominates today. That is why your RC passages, they can also be called, if you go through your previous year RC passages, you can also call them Eurocentric and Anglocentric. So they are centered on Europe and the Americas. So that's why we will discuss Western philosophy. And today I'll just cover the ancient period with you. In the next session, I'll cover the rest of the period. Okay. So we'll do this in 2 sessions. So imagine, because this period in itself is so vast, it's not possible for me to discuss the entire philosophy, Western philosophy, in 1 session. Right? So, Simran, yes, you can take notes during the class, right? Although this will be available later as well, the session, but if you want, yes, you can take notes. Okay, yes, only Cat, please come in. Now, if we look at the birthplace of philosophy, Greece is often said to be the birthplace of philosophy. However, it would not be entirely accurate. Why? Because first of all, the boundaries of Greece were different then, right? I'm sure you all know about the region Sparta. Also because when we say that philosophy originated in Greece, we primarily talk about this period. We start from this period. However, even before Socrates, it's not that just because Socrates is called the father of philosophy, before him no philosophy existed. No, philosophy began even earlier, right? So what would be the starting point of this subject, philosophy? Tell me. What would be the starting point? When would this subject, this field begin, come into existence? Phil means love, sophos means knowledge. So a love for knowing things. So if let's say it rains and you're just trying to think, okay, why did it rain? And somebody tells you, what, the rain god must be happy. That's why it's raining. If let's say there's a drought and somebody tells you, oh, the drought god must be angry with us, right? The food god must be angry with us, and that's why there's a drought, and you accept that. So these are not, this is not thinking, right? This is simply accepting myths, supernatural explanations. So that was the way of the world for a long time, before some people started rejecting such explanations. Okay, so some people said, no, enough of supernatural explanations. You know what? Some explanations must exist within the nature, within our within the natural world around us. So these people were called naturalists, and they existed in this period which is called the pre-Socratic period, the period before Socrates. Now they raised some very important questions because they were the first people to begin finding explanation for phenomena within nature, right? So let's talk a bit about them. The pre-Socratic period. This was the point when philosophy and science were not really different disciplines. Science had still not emerged. Okay, science comes from the word science. Science or science, it means systematized knowledge. So ultimately science is also knowledge, philosophy is also knowledge, just that we call science systematized knowledge, right? So they were not different disciplines at this point. However, people started rejecting supernatural or mythological explanations, and they were also concerned not just what was happening in the physical world, not just with that, but also what lay beyond the realm of physics. Meta means beyond. What lay beyond the physical world? Why are human beings born? What is their purpose? Where do we come from? Where do we ultimately go? So they asked such important questions. Unfortunately, not many texts related to the pre-Socratic period survive, right? They probably didn't write things down, or the texts don't survive. So we know about the philosophers of this period through later philosophers. They talked about them, they wrote about them. However, this was a very vibrant period and there were a number of philosophers at this time. Pythagoras, so this guy is Pythagoras. I'm sure you use the theorem extensively in your quant, probably in LRD as well, Pythagoras theorem. So this philosopher existed during the pre-Socratic time, and you'll be surprised to know he was not, so it looks like, oh, such a clinical mathematical guy he must be. No, he was quite religious as well. So he was a religious philosopher, okay, and some of his ideas were a little weird, but he believed in that there was a mathematical harmony in the cosmos. That's what he believed, a mathematical harmony in the cosmos. Planets also had these ratios in which they revolved around the sun, ratios of distance between each other. So he felt that there was this mathematical harmony to the universe. What was his religion? I'm not sure if he followed one of the organized religions that exist today, right? Not sure about that, because at this time a lot of pagan influence also existed. So pagans, they were nature worshippers, right? So I'm not sure if he believed in Christianity, which would become the dominant religion as we proceed in our discussion, but it is possible that he was a pagan or his religion had pagan influences, right? Can we say he was conservative? He believed in communal living, that people should live together. So I don't know if we can call that conservative, depends on your interpretation, right? A lot of philosophers at this time were concerned with the problem of matter. What are things made up of? Yes, what are things made up of? And how does change happen in nature? Right? And different people had different views regarding this. For example, and he was a very influential figure, because later on scientists verified what he said at this time. Any idea? What he said? Democritus. he gave this philosophy of atomism, which is just a fancy term for saying that he said that our nature is built up of these this indivisible matter, indivisible particles. Okay, and this was just his deduction. He couldn't verify it. He didn't have tools to verify it at that time. But this was a precursor to atoms, what he said. So imagine somebody talked about atoms long before the discovery was verified. Democritus. Right? Thales similarly said that water is a fundamental substance in our nature. So these people were quite concerned with the nature of matter. Right? And they also had differing views. For example, Heraclitus, he said everything is always in a state of flux. Everything is always changing. Whereas Parmenides said that everything is always the same. Okay, that everything is steady, everything is the same. So, differing views, various philosophers clubbed into this category for you, the pre-Socratic philosophers. Right? Heraclitus, I think if anybody from R6 is here by any chance, the R6 batch, we discussed a question yesterday which mentioned Heraclitus's river. So Heraclitus very popularly gave a quote that you cannot step into the same river twice, because the river is always in a state of flux. It's always flowing. The water has changed. Right? So these were the pre-Socratic people. Now we come to the classical or Socratic period. Yes, there is a difference, Ashish. We'll come to it. Let's in fact come to the Socratic period. So Socratic period is, I would like to call it the classical period, because it doesn't just cover Socrates' philosophy. It also talks about Plato's philosophy, Aristotle's philosophy, and also there's another school of thought called Cynicism, right? Diogenes, in case you've read about this guy. So the classical period, it was a long period. I mean, it looks like just 1 century, but it was a long period, right? Socrates was a primary figure. That's why it's also called the Socratic period. And a very popular quote that I would like to begin with: the unexamined life is not worth living. Socrates believed in examining everything. You know, critical reasoning that you study for your CAT, for your other entrance tests. Who developed it? Socrates. So he believed in this, indulging in this dialogue. Okay, so critical argumentation. So you and I, we argue with each other, we debate with each other in order to discover new knowledge. It's not like we want to, tear each other apart. No. Okay, our aim is to improve our own knowledge, to discover new knowledge. So he believed that through such a dialectic, through such a discussion dialogue, and through critical reasoning in this discussion, we could discover new knowledge. Right? He focused on human beings and their behavior. That's why he focused on ethics over, let's say, the metaphysical world. Right? His concern was human beings. He believed that everything in this universe was purpose driven. Teleology means study of the purpose of something. So everything is purpose driven. And his method is wildly popular even now. Interestingly, Socrates did not believe in the classroom structure that we have today, the classroom structure of pedagogy. For instance, I am lecturing, you all are listening. This is a Stoic method. Okay, I will come to Stoicism. Socrates believed in these one-on-one discussions. So even with his disciples, he would just walk with them. He didn't even believe in being sedentary. He would walk and talk, right? Indulge in critical reasoning and then both would develop new knowledge. चलो, ओनली कैट ने प्रणाम भी कर दिया है सोक्रेटिस जी को, पर वो बहुत डीप थिंकिंग में इन्वॉल्व है. मे बी ही वोंट रिस्पॉन्ड. हैव यू हर्ड ऑफ दिस टर्म सोक्रेटिक आयरनी? So Socrates used to do this, okay, when he would debate with someone, he would pretend to be very ignorant, very stupid, okay, so that the other person becomes a little overconfident, a little extreme, and in doing that discovers their own flawed assumptions. It happens with us, no, that when we become overconfident, we say the extreme of our beliefs, because we feel सामने वाले को तो कुछ आता नहीं है, बोल दो थोड़ा सा extra भी, right? And that then Socrates used to catch it. That, see, this is the flawed assumption that you're making. So assumption questions, remember, blame Socrates for them. right? Critical reasoning, blame this guy. Okay. Anybody who knows how he died? Yes. Anybody who knows the story? I shouldn't be smiling. I should be grave. Yeah. So, you know what? He existed at a time when it was still not very popular to investigate things, to, even though pre-Socratic people, they had also been countering these supernatural explanations, religion and myths, it was still not a very popular thing to do. By doing this, Socrates was said to be morally corrupting the youth by making them think, okay, defying religious authority. So, he was asked either to say that whatever he has said is flawed, either to accept that or to drink poison. The name of the poison was hemlock. It's a plant. So he was asked to do that. So he drank hemlock. That was his punishment. He died. Okay. So imagine, there was a time when even thinking was a crime. Making people think was a crime. Right? So I think we do live in better times. I would like to think, at least. Yes, moral corruption. Science background. Oh ho. No worries, only cat. तभी पढ़ रहे हैं हम. So देखो, Socratic method कैसा दिखेगा? What can we say about this phenomenon? What are your assumptions? Although Socrates ऐसे नहीं पढ़ाता था. Remember, I just told you. And what do you base your reasoning on? Whereas the sarcastic method employed by a lot of people today, of course it won't be on the test. I just lectured about it for no reason. I would be happy to regrade it. I love wasting my time. Yes, you can submit it late. You're special. So a lot of people, when they ask me, ma'am, is this a CAT level RC? And I tell them, no, of course not. I love wasting my and your time. Yeah? Right. Correct, Harshita. I agree with you. So, now Plato was a student of Socrates. Plato, in fact, Socrates never wrote down anything. Whatever we know of Socrates, we know because of Plato's writings. Because Plato wrote. Okay, so in fact, it's possible that we don't know the real Socrates. We just know Plato's Socrates. Yeah? So, Plato was a student. So, that's why I'm just trying to make it relatively easier for you, Shahnawaz, that if you know what these guys said, when they are referred to in philosophy passages, it will be easier for you to process them. Yeah? To process those things. So, he wrote his books as dialogues, and they featured Socrates, these dialogues. Socrates was the main speaker, the star. And Plato actually was multi-talented person. Again, he combined ethics, so he talked about human behavior, he talked about metaphysical questions, he talked about political philosophy. I am very sure some of you have heard of Plato's Republic. Yes? And then he also talked about the nature of knowledge. So, just like Socrates, Plato also embraced uncertainty in knowledge. He said that we may not ever be able to find out the absolute truth. Okay, we may not be ever have certain knowledge, and we should be comfortable with this idea. Yeah, that's what he said. So we should embrace uncertainty. Then the metaphysical part in his philosophy was this abstract theory that he gave, the theory of forms. Anyone who's familiar with this? Theory of forms. Aporia means no final answer. We may not ever attain any final answer. Anybody who has read about it in an RC passage? So I remember recording an RC passage in the topic tests on the class portal that did talk about the theory of forms. Okay, so the theory of forms. So Plato said that this sensible world, this world that we can see through our senses, see, touch, taste, smell, perceive through our senses, this sensible world is just a copy of an original. What is that original? This original is a sort of an abstract reality, something that we can't see, something that is not present in our sensible world, but something that we can reach through our reason. अगर हम अपना दिमाग लगाएं, अपना इंटेलेक्ट लगाएं, through our reason, we can reach this abstract reality. This he called forms. So according to him, there was a form of justice. Justice का एक concept है, एक abstract ideal concept, ideal, वो बिल्कुल आइडियल होगा, रिमेंबर, राइट. ब्यूटी का भी ऐसे एक है, जस्टिस का है, गुडनेस का है, राइट. सो अगर हम अपना रीज़न यूज़ करें तो हम इन फॉर्म्स को जान सकते हैं, पहचान सकते हैं. दैट्स वॉट ही सेड, द थियरी ऑफ फॉर्म्स. बट ही सेड दैट, यू नो व्हाट, अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल, दे जस्ट डोंट वांट टू रीच हियर, दे डोंट वांट टू अप्लाई देयर ब्रेन्स, दे वांट टू स्टे इन अ केव, ऑल इग्नोरेंट. In this cave, they just see shadows. Okay, shadows are this copy, sensible world, right? Shadows are copy. Once they go out of the cave, they will see the real thing. Okay, but they just don't want to go out. And Socrates was the guy who went out. As per Plato, Socrates was the guy who dared to go out of the cave. He gathered true knowledge and he wanted to distribute it. He came back to the cave to distribute it to the people. But people were resistant. That's why he was killed. That's what Plato said. Yes, so allegory of the cave, again a very, very popular story. I am sure, yes, Sophie's World does mention it. Good, Amisha, you remember this. Virtue to reach the highest form. So according to Plato, what was the highest form? इनमें भी उसने ना हायरार्की बनाई हुई थी. ऐसा नहीं है कि जस्टिस, ब्यूटी सब बराबर हैं, नहीं, कुछ इसमें से ऊपर है, कुछ नीचे है. सबसे जो हाईएस्ट फॉर्म है ना, वो गुड है, अच्छा करना. इनफैक्ट एक राजा का, एक रूलर का क्या धर्म होता है? व्हाट इज़ देयर ड्यूटी? देयर ड्यूटी इज़ टू डू गुड बाय देयर पीपल. दिस इज समथिंग दैट ही रोट इन रिपब्लिक. एंड एन आइडियल स्टेट, एन आइडियल कंट्री would be ruled by philosopher kings, because these philosopher kings would have reached this good, the knowledge of this good. उन्होंने अपना इंटेलेक्ट रीज़न लगा के इस गुड तक वो पहुंच गए होंगे. तो वो हैं आइडियल रूलर्स, philosopher kings. He was against democracy. You will be surprised to know this. He actually criticized democracy. He said that democracy is what? A tyranny of the majority. डेमोक्रेसी में क्या होता है कि मेजॉरिटी जो है वो अपना रूल झाड़ने लगती है. टिरनी ऑफ द मेजॉरिटी. ओके, ओके आशीष. So this was Plato for you, and it is said that he was a very handsome guy for his time, and he was also a popular athlete. So people were very multi-talented earlier, right? It's not that they had to specialize in just one field. So philosopher, logician, mathematician, athlete, and he found the first university, Western University. Okay, academy he called it. All right. So this is Plato for you. Tyranny of majority. Yes, Simran. So tyranny of majority means that, see, in a democracy what happens? If I take a poll in the class, I ask you, okay, if 70% of people say that we should do RC1 first and RC2 later, but 30% of the people are of this opinion, right? But because of democracy, I'll have to listen to just the 70% of the people. Now let's say these represent, I'm just taking an example. Let's say in an Indian context, they represent a majority caste and these represent a minority caste. Then am I doing justice by listening to this 70%? Isn't this a tyranny of the majority? Right? So do you see that somehow they didn't draw the eyeballs? Yeah, scary. These statues look quite scary. No tradition of drawing eyeballs. You can see this here as well. Okay. Concept related question in workshop. Yes. We talked about Tocqueville. SJ, if you are from R6, we talked about Tocqueville. He was a French aristocrat who gave this term. क्या सोच रहे थे हसप्रीत, बताओ. ज़रूरी नहीं मेजॉरिटी जानता है, सही बोले, एब्सोल्युटली, यस यस यस, कि मेजॉरिटी जनता है, यस सही बोले, बिल्कुल। मेजॉरिटी जो कहती है वो करना पड़ता है डेमोक्रेसी में, जबकि वो गलत भी हो सकती है मेजॉरिटी, मे बी मेजॉरिटी इग्नोरेंट है, या उसकी एलेगरी ऑफ केव में। ओके ओके SJ, so Aristotle was a student of Plato. So do you see this chain that's going on? Socrates का स्टूडेंट प्लेटो ने ही सब कुछ लिखा सोक्रेटिस के बारे में, पर अब उसके बाद एरिस्टोटल प्लेटो का स्टूडेंट था, बट ही टू अ सर्टेन एक्सटेंट डिफर्ड इन हिज व्यूज फ्रॉम बोथ दीज पीपल। इसके व्यूज थोड़े से डिफरेंट थे एरिस्टोटल के। ओके, सो he talked about again a number of things: ethics, aesthetics, beauty, okay, politics, metaphysics, logic. So anybody who dislikes syllogism, है कोई ऐसा जिसको डिडक्टिव रीजनिंग नहीं पसंद? Yes, so you have to blame Aristotle, okay, not me, Aristotle. He actually gave syllogisms to the world. I mean, this is what is said, because otherwise there are people who say that Buddhists also gave syllogisms much before Aristotle, but this is what we know of, that he formalized deductive reasoning. Yes, this guy is behind DILR. Okay, he believed in, he embraced certainty. Aristotle felt that things could be categorized, there was an order in this world, okay, and there were certain things that we could say with certainty. So while Socrates and Plato also didn't say that there was no certain, they didn't deny that there were certain absolute truths. Socrates said this, that there were certain objective absolute truths in this world, but what they were comfortable with was that we may not ever be able to know them. हैं कुछ एब्सोल्यूट ट्रूथ्स इस दुनिया में, बट ऐसा ज़रूरी नहीं है कि हमें पता लगे। बट एरिस्टोटल का जो नेचर था वो था टू इन्वेस्टिगेट, टू ऑब्जर्व एंड इन्वेस्टिगेट एंड टू रीच सच ट्रूथ्स। ऑब्जर्व, इन्वेस्टिगेट एंड रीच सच ट्रूथ्स, ये नेचर था एरिस्टोटल का। सो ही वेरी ऑब्सेसिवली कैटेगराइज थिंग्स। रिमेंबर दैट चैप्टर डाइवर्सिटी इन द लिविंग वर्ल्ड, क्लास 9, a chapter I hated. Yes, diversity, phylum chordata, phylum cephalochordata. So we had this chapter in biology which actually categorized living beings, plants and animals, according to these scientific names. Okay, and yes, so who is responsible for this? Aristotle, because he pioneered zoology. He categorized various animals and plants, dissect करके, ठीक है। So very interested he was in ordering things, categorizing things, finding out truths, and he was an empiricist. Empiricist कौन होते हैं? जो ऑब्जर्वेशन में बिलीव करते हैं कि ऑब्जर्व करो अपनी सराउंडिंग्स एंड बेस्ड ऑन ऑब्जर्वेशन कम टू सर्टेन कंक्लूजन्स। बट इट्स नॉट दैट ही वॉज जस्ट एन एम्पेरिसिस्ट, कि वो बस जो उसने देखा बस वहीं पर ख़त्म हो जाता था उसके लिए। नो, सो फॉर एग्जाम्पल ही सॉ समथिंग पर्टिकुलर अराउंड हिम, समथिंग पर्टिकुलर अबाउट अ प्लांट, दैट ओके दिस पर्टिकुलर प्लांट नीड्स सॉइल. Now let's say he saw 10 different plants, they all needed soil to grow. So then he used induction. He was not just about deduction, he also used induction, that okay, a lot of plants around me that I have observed need soil to grow. So maybe plants in general need soil to grow. Maybe plants in general need soil to grow. So he didn't just draw conclusions based on his observation, but also used his reasoning. So he was a combination, primarily an empiricist, but also to a certain extent a rationalist. Primarily this, but also this. Yes. What is teleology? Yes. What is teleology? The study of purpose or cause. That is teleology. So why have we come onto this earth? That is a purpose question, no? What is our purpose? Right. So the study of purpose. And in fact, Aristotle he delved deep into it, that there are 4 types of causes. Now I am giving this to you as your homework. Find out those 4 types of causes and tell me in the next class. Okay, what are the 4 types of causes behind anything, any phenomena's existence? Yes. Okay, so Aristotle was also controversial. Anybody who remembers, we did a those of you who are with Rodha, we did a passage in class that talked about should Aristotle be banned in today's universities, because some of his views today will be viewed as sexist and racist. He supported slavery because it was the norm at the time, and he also felt that women were inferior to men. So, controversial figure today. And he was the teacher of Alexander. He taught Alexander the Great. Okay. So, influential guy. Okay. Set up his own, again, universities as well. And he critiqued Plato's theory of forms. He felt that अगर ऐसा है ना कि कोई एसेंस है, कोई आइडियल जो आप कह रहे हो, प्लेटो ने कहा ना वो आइडियल है, एक जस्टिस का एक आइडियल कॉन्सेप्ट है, वो सब विद इन अ पर्टिकुलर थिंग ही होना चाहिए, उसके अपार्ट नहीं हो सकता. कि आप कह रहे हो ये तो देखो मटेरियल वर्ल्ड है, इसके ऊपर कहीं एक रेल्म है जहाँ पे एब्स्ट्रैक्ट चीज़ें हैं, एब्स्ट्रैक्ट कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं. नहीं, वो ऊपर कहीं नहीं है, वो इसी चीज़ के अंदर है, उसकी एसेंस, उसका आइडियल फॉर्म. दैट्स व्हाट ही सेड. यस, clear to everybody? Aristotle. So this is Aristotle for you. These 3 guys together are very, very influential, okay, in classical period, in Western philosophy. You must have come across them in various RC passages. Even if you pick up your CAT previous year papers, you will come across many RCs that talk about them and their philosophies. Okay, all right. Critiqued, yes, he criticized it, Plato's theory of forms. So प्लेटो के जो वो व्यूज़ थे ना कि एक आइडियल्स एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, जस्टिस वगैरह, एक आइडियल फॉर्म है उनका जो हम रीच कर सकते हैं थ्रू रीज़न. ही सेड वो थ्रू रीज़न नहीं, वो उस चीज़ के अंदर ही, जैसे जो हम अपने अराउंड ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हैं उसी के अंदर होनी चाहिए वो चीज़ें, वो आइडियल्स. ओके, ऑल राइट. So Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living. What are these 3 philosophers saying? Yes, Ashish. Yes. Do some of you agree? The unexamined life combined with an MBA is highly marketable. If you don't think much and then you go for an MBA, you are sorted. So, just a joke. All right. Now, let's talk about cynicism. Have you heard of this person, Diogenes? Diogenes. Okay. So, okay, some of you haven't. So again, in philosophy, some of the philosophy RC passages, especially those that talk about cynicism. Okay, I'm sure you've heard this word cynic. ये तो सुना होगा सबने, है ना? ये बड़ा cynical आदमी है. Yeah, this person is a cynic. Yes, all of them are under the classical period, within a span of a century. So basically their influence began even before the century began, and of course continued much after the century. Skeptic, yes, a cynic is an extreme version of what we call skeptic today, but you'll be surprised, skepticism is also a philosophy. Okay, so we will talk about skepticism as well. ठीक है, तो cynical को आजकल negative तरीके से देखते हैं बड़े, right? It's a negative word. But it didn't always carry negative connotations. Then what happened? So today a cynical person is somebody who's extremely pessimistic and distrustful of people around him. Okay, that person is called cynical, very distrustful of people around him. So now initially, when the philosophy came about, one of the founders of the philosophy was this guy Diogenes. So Diogenes was a wealthy guy, born into a wealthy family, but he abandoned it all in search of what should be the purpose of life, right? So he felt that, this civilization, we claim to be civilized people, but in the name of civilization, we have created so many rules, so many customs, so many conventions, and living in this society, it also gives birth to so many material desires, power, fame, money. So philosophers of cynicism rejected all of them. It was an extreme philosophy, okay? They rejected all material desires. Look at the guy in this picture. The guy is Diogenes, and imagine a rich guy like him. He started living in a barrel, started calling this barrel his home, started sleeping in it, carried just, I think, one pair of clothes, that's it, right? So that was Diogenes, and he urinated in public. Basically, he was against all social norms. So it was a very extreme philosophy. There's a very famous anecdote that once Alexander, and I'm sure some of you have heard it, it is there in Sophie's World as well. Once Alexander was passing by when he saw Diogenes. So Diogenes was resting outside his barrel under the sun. Now Alexander saw him and he felt, oh my god, this guy is very poor, let me help him. So he asked, can I do something to help you? And Diogenes said, just get out of sunlight. That is what you can do for me. Please get out of my sun. So this is who Diogenes was, okay? And Alexander was so impressed that he said that if I were not Alexander, I should be wished to be Diogenes. Okay? Yes, out of my sight. Correct. So later, some of the later cynics are these people: Crates, Hipparchia, who rejected gender roles. Okay, so she rejected gender norms. So they actually advocated extreme poverty as a virtue. So it is that school of thought जिसमें गरीबी को बहुत glorify करते थे, ठीक है? Extreme poverty was seen as a virtue. Savage Diogenes, absolutely, yes. Live a life of virtue. So these guys were very big on virtue, all of them, especially Socrates, Plato. इन्हें virtue से बहुत प्यार था. Virtue क्या होता है? Tell me. For example, Plato ने कहा ultimate good, right? Goodness. So virtue is when you act according to good, when your behavior is good, moral behavior, good behavior, that is your being virtuous, not indulging in any of the vices. That is when your behavior is virtuous. So they said that live a life of virtue, be good to others, be moral, and prefer nature, be in agreement with nature. You don't have to follow any social norms. भाड़ में गए social norms. Nature ने नहीं बनाए थे social norms. ठीक है? And while this was an extreme philosophy, Stoicism, a philosophy that came later on, was a milder version of it, and many of its ideas were absorbed into Stoicism. Okay, you know what? Diogenes used to carry a lamp even during the day. You know why? Because he said that I am searching for an honest man. So that's why he said that I am carrying a lamp, because I am searching for an honest man. And he loved dogs. In fact, the word cynicism comes from kainikos, which means a dog-like. So he felt that dogs don't go, abide any social norms. They sleep where they want to, they defecate where they want to, be like dogs. Yes? So that was cynicism. Oh, okay. All right. So now I have tried to put things on a timeline for you, right? But ये इतना ऐसा नहीं है कि कि बहुत डिस्टिंक्ट सेपरेशन है, यहाँ पर सोक्रेटिस के बिल्कुल भी थॉट्स नहीं आए थे, बिकॉज इफ़ यू सी देयर इज़ एन ओवरलैप हियर, राइट. देन अगेन ये वाला जो ट्रांजिशन वाला पीरियड था, यहाँ पर कोई और फिलोसफर्स नहीं थे, ऐसा भी नहीं है, राइट. तो ये जो ट्रांजिशन पीरियड था, हियर एग्जिस्टेड these philosophers called sophists. नाम से तो समझ आ गया होगा, बेसिकली these people were also pretty knowledgeable, but ये काफ़ी practical लोग थे. In fact, you will really resonate with what they said, because this is something that a lot of academia talks about today and believes today. So they said that there is no absolute truth कि हाँ भाई यही सच है, because my truth can differ from your truth. Truth is context dependent. That's what they said. So truth, moral values, ऐसे कोई absolute moral values नहीं होती हैं. That is also context dependent. So that's what they said, and this is something that today's sociology, today's ethics, today's anthropology talks a lot about. Okay. So that things are context dependent. So they existed in both these periods, and later on they became these itinerant intellectuals. Itinerant matlab, what do we mean by itinerant? Traveling from place to place, right? So they traveled from place to place and they taught rhetoric. Who will tell me what is rhetoric? They taught rhetoric. The persuading people through language. Language can be powerful, right? Language can be used to persuade people. So rhetoric, no, it does not mean repetition. It means the art of persuading people through words, through your language. That is called rhetoric. So a lot of lawyers, they are very skilled in rhetoric, yes, because that's what they do for a living, persuade the judge through their words. So now these sophists also taught this, that how you can succeed in debates, how you can succeed in life using your language, and they charged a fee. So Plato criticized them, Socrates criticized them like anything, that these people are charging a fee and they are just treating, he felt that this was very deceptive, that you are using your language, you are in a way manipulating language to win. However, this teaching actually helped the ordinary Athenians at that time a lot, because in the court of Athens they were able to make convincing arguments which resulted in laws that favored them, right? So they felt that rhetoric is greater than even truth, because if you are able to convince the other person, that's it. Who cares about what the absolute truth is? So they were relativists. Relativism is, there is no absolute anything, no absolute truth, no absolute morality. Okay, and while they have been vilified a lot, see, just like cynics were made villains and इसलिए अब cynical word इतना negative word हो गया, ऐसे ही sophist को भी बहुत negative villain की तरह portray करा, especially Plato ने. Okay, and that's why they are looked at in a bad light. So the word sophistry, have you heard this word? It's used today. Absolutely, we'll discuss Renaissance philosophy in the next class, Dheeraj. Marketers also use rhetoric, absolutely. So sophistry is a word that today means using arguments that sound convincing, but they are actually false. Okay, so using specious arguments, such arguments are called specious arguments. सुनने में बहुत convincing है पर actually false है. So ये meaning अब है because of all this vilification. And you'll be surprised that these people pioneered linguistics, the study of language, because language is a living, breathing organism. Language holds power, words hold power, That's what they also believed in, right? That you can persuade people through language. So linguistics, they studied grammar, they studied structure, they studied this relationship between language and power. So काफ़ी अच्छे लोग थे मेरे हिसाब से तो, but अच्छी लाइट में नहीं देखे गए. Having a way with words, yes, that person is a good orator and is skilled in rhetoric. Okay, so here's the difference between Socrates' thoughts and the Sophist thoughts. See this, read this. राइट. सो सोफिस्ट ने बोला देखो जॉर्ज के लिए पी ट्रू है बट नॉट ट्रू फॉर मैरी. बट सोक्रेटिस ने कहा नो नो, पी इज आइदर ट्रू और फॉल्स दो वी मे नॉट नो विच. दैट्स व्हाट सोक्रेटिस सेड. ओके, सो दैट्स द डिफरेंस. ऑल राइट, नाउ वी कम टू Stoicism. Politics is full of sophistry, absolutely. अच्छा, मैंने ये पिक्चर क्यों लगाई है? Why do you think? Stoicism is a word that comes from Stoa. Stoas are such structures in Greece where you have these rows of these columns, okay, and people used to gather there for discussions, for studying, okay, and in lectures there used to be a raised podium here, so the lecturer would stand here, the teacher would stand here, and the disciples would listen. So much like our modern classrooms. So that's why when I posted the message in the group for our students, I said that we'll have a Zeno style discussion because I am lecturing, you are listening to me, right? So Zeno was the founder of Stoicism. Okay, see, earlier when people were referred to, we referred to them like this: Zeno of Citium, Diogenes of so and so place. So their place was also mentioned whenever they were referred to. But our guy Diogenes, he rejected this association. He said, don't call me Diogenes of so and so. I am a cosmopolitan guy. I am a citizen of the world. Cosmopolitan means citizen of the world. Originally, cosmos, universe. Polites means citizen. Okay, so that's what he said. अच्छा, तो अब एक स्टोइक इंसान कैसा होता है? आई एम श्योर यू हर्ड दिस वर्ड, यू यूज दिस वर्ड, है ना? अभी भी बहुत यूज होता है ये. सो व्हाट काइंड ऑफ अ पर्सन इज अ स्टोइक पर्सन? बर्दाश्त करने वाला पर्सन, मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता टाइप पर्सन, right? So basically somebody who bears whatever comes on their way, right, in their way, who bears that with fortitude, has a lot of self control, is never very happy or very sad, right? That person is a stoic person. And trust me, this philosophy holds a lot of value for you all, okay? Because all of us today are chasing temporary pleasure. All of us have become hedonists. Yes, who are hedonists? In fact, even hedonism was a philosophy. So when we chase instant gratification, temporary pleasures, so that is when we are hedonists. But when do we achieve something that requires a consistent preparation, a certain time period is involved, let's say, is needed for that preparation? We need to be stoics in that period. Okay, because we need to have this fortitude. Stoics said that focus only on what you can control, and this is something that we also tell you, right? I also tell you as a teacher, focus on the controllables. Don't worry about अरे ये profile है क्या मिलेगा, right? Stuff like that. Similarly, we also tell you this, that look at your obstacles as opportunities. Turn your obstacles into fuel. Marcus Aurelius said that the impediments against action propel action. The impediments against action actually promote or propel that action. So this is what the Stoics said. It's a toned down cynicism actually, because cynics, they separated themselves from the society. बिल्कुल सोसाइटी के हिसाब से बिहेव नहीं करेंगे. यहाँ पर they do remain within the society. Okay, they do accept certain baseline wealth as well. ठीक है, baseline health, baseline wealth होनी चाहिए. But their goal ultimately is freedom from these irrational passions, extreme happiness, extreme sorrow, through what is amor fati? बताओ, amor fati. ये बंगाली लग रहा है पर ये है नहीं, दिस इज फ्रेंच. Basically acceptance of your fate. Here love is not intended, acceptance of your fate. Okay. And Stoicism was much more popular because it was not that radical, right? So it was much more popular. So this is now a Hellenistic or Roman period philosophy, right? We have come to the Hellenistic and Roman periods. This was the period of Alexander the Great, when he sort of conquered the world. Alexander the Great, when he conquered a number of countries and his influence spread there, right? So this belongs to that period. Okay. All right. Being IS, noted. And Marcus Aurelius, have you heard of him? He was a king. So he was also a Stoic. He wrote a book called Meditations. काफ़ी boring है, but काफ़ी profound भी है, right? What is negative visualization? Basically, negative visualization, I don't know if I advocate this or not, but it says that, visualize your loss so that you can appreciate what you have at present. So let's say you love a person, visualize a time when they'll not be there in your life and you'll start appreciating them more. Okay, but then don't start crying while visualizing when the time when they're not in your life. So that's why I said that I don't know whether I advocate this. Okay. All right. So journaling, because you'll be in touch with your thoughts. Negative visualization, turning obstacles into fuel. This is what Stoicism talked about. ठीक है? All right. So here is R.I.P. Zeno the philosopher, dead. But so what? Self-control, fortitude, no extreme passions. Yes, he was a stoic. All right. So we now, because we are discussing ancient philosophy today, we'll be now roaming around in the Hellenistic period and Roman period, right? They overlapped to a certain extent. तो रोम में जो हो रहा था वो Roman period, Greece and surrounding countries में, and in fact Hellenistic period का influence far and wide था. Egypt, Persia, India, right? So far and wide influence. So Epicureanism, I am sure some of you have come across this. You have also come across the word Epicurean. बताओ क्या meaning होता है इसका? Amir Khan, okay. If you feel he embodies those qualities, then yes, he can be called a Stoic. In fact, anybody who cracks CAT after an enduring preparation must have practiced some bits of Stoicism here and there. Okay. So today, in fact, today the word means somebody who appreciates fine food and drink. Appreciates fine food and drink. It's a synonym of connoisseur, cognoscente. So ठीक है, connoisseur, cognoscente. Then we have gourmand. Specifically for food we use this. Somebody who appreciates fine food and drink, that person is called a gourmand. Connoisseur, cognoscente, जो फाइन चीज़ों की जिनको परख भी होती है और वो अप्रिशिएट करते हैं, those people are connoisseurs, cognoscente. Anyway, so today this word is used to mean somebody who appreciates fine food and drink. But when this philosophy came about, दिस पर्सन सेड लिव अ सिंपल लाइफ. ये रिच फूड खाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है आपको, फाइन फूड और ड्रिंक्स की ज़रूरत नहीं है. सिंपल लाइफ रखो, फ्रेंडशिप्स रखो अपनी लाइफ में, ठीक है, लिमिटेड डिज़ायर्स रखो, आप खुश रहोगे, जाओ. सो this was a very simple philosophy and it appeals to people a lot because this guy said that the goal of life is achieving true happiness and peace, not hedonism. True happiness, not temporary pleasures. And how could we achieve true happiness when we live a simple life, limited needs वाली life हो हमारी, अच्छी अच्छी friendships हों उसमें. अभी अभी friendship day गया. So he very popularly said this: friendship dances around the world announcing we must wake to happiness. So that's what he said. And he was also a person who believed in reason, rationality. तो rationalist था ये अपने thought से, ठीक है. So he said that एक बार हमें reason पता चल जाए ना किसी चीज़ की, that dispels fears. And that is very true, especially in case of various diseases. Once we find out the reason, our fears are dispelled, right? Okay. अरे हाँ बिल्कुल, ये आमिर खान की फ़ोटो लग रही है बट ये एक्चुअली मीम है. बट यू आर वेरी राइट, लग तो आमिर खान ही रहा है अभी वाला. सो यू बिलीव्ड इन लाइफ, liberty and the pursuit of happiness before it was cool. Yeah. So there was also this meme that I came across that there was one person who was sitting saying Stoicism. Okay, the board in front of him said Stoicism, that people who want to sign up for Stoicism had to go to him and people who wanted to sign up for Epicureanism had to go in this queue. And the queue of Stoicism was completely empty. Okay, and there were a lot of people lined up here. Okay, all right. So interesting है एपिक्यूरियनिज्म, थोड़ा सा अलग हो गया. नहीं तो हम स्टोइसिज्म, सोफिज्म काफ़ी नॉलेज इंटेंसिव लग रहे थे. अब एक बंदे ने तो हैप्पीनेस, खुशी की बात करी. यस, पर चलो वापस आ जाते हैं नॉलेज पर. स्केप्टिसिज्म, somebody mentioned this. So this is also spelled with a C, skepticism. In fact UK spelling ये होती है, US spelling ये है. So have you noticed this in academics specifically? If you have read some research paper or the other, the author is always very cautious in terms of the conclusions they draw. Yes, in fact this is what we also teach you when we teach you inference questions, that if your RC passage has had mild language, your inferences cannot be extreme. Yes, because if this text does not embrace any certainty, you can't embrace it on your own. So what is academic skepticism? Let's first talk about what is skepticism. A person who is skeptical of something, yes, वो क्या होगा, बहुत श्योर होगा उस चीज़ के बारे में, डाउटफुल होगा, है ना. दिस पर्सन विल बी वेरी डाउटफुल ऑफ वेरियस क्लेम्स दैट यू मेक इन फ्रंट ऑफ हिम. यस, क्रिटिकल रीजनिंग में भी तो हम यही सीखते हैं ना कि हमें क्लेम्स को क्रिटिकली एनालाइज करना है. सो स्केप्टिसिज्म सेज दैट अवॉइड द पॉस्टुलेशन ऑफ फाइनल ट्रूथ्स. मतलब कि फाइनल ट्रूथ्स बोलने से बचो. जैसे कि ये बोलने से बचो कि for example, if I say the earth will come to an end in let's say 150 years given the climate crisis. Let's say somebody makes such a statement. Will a skeptic support it? Because it is in the nature of a final truth. So skeptics बोलते थे कि ऐसे फाइनल ट्रूथ्स ना मत दो. क्यों? क्योंकि ह्यूमन नॉलेज एंडलेस है. ह्यूमन नॉलेज में हमेशा एडवांसेस होते रहते हैं. देर इज़ नो सर्टेनिटी इन ह्यूमन नॉलेज. टुडे यू कम अप विद अ थियोरी, टुमारो समबडी एल्स माइट शो एविडेंस दैट गोज अगेंस्ट अ थियोरी एंड अ न्यू थियोरी में कम अप. ऐसे ही तो एकेडमिक फील्ड्स में प्रोग्रेस होती है. दैट्स हाउ वी प्रोग्रेस इन एकेडेमिया. बिकॉज अगर किसी ने फाइनल ट्रूथ्स दे दिए फिर तो एकेडमिक्स का मतलब ही क्या है. सारे PhDs बिल्कुल ही बेरोज़गार हो जाएंगे. और यस, सो नो, देर इज़ नो सर्टेनिटी इन ह्यूमन नॉलेज, सो एम्ब्रेस दिस स्केप्टिसिज्म. और एक बार एम्ब्रेस कर लोगे ना ये स्केप्टिसिज्म, बहुत ही पीस आ जाएगा जीवन में, इनर पीस. ओके, बिकॉज वंस यू एक्सेप्ट दैट you may not be able to know the truth, right, you will achieve inner peace, because then you will not be judgmental of things, you will not fall into such debates. आप ऐसे वाले डिबेट्स में पढ़ोगे ही नहीं, है ना. सो ये स्केप्टिसिज्म स्केप्टिक्स बोलते थे. अच्छा, विल अ स्केप्टिक मेक दिस स्टेटमेंट, ट्रूथ इज इम्पॉसिबल? So a skeptic will not make even this statement, because ये भी तो फिर एक फाइनल ट्रूथ के नेचर में ही हो गया ना. We may not be able to know the truth, ये बोल सकता है. वो ट्रूथ इज इम्पॉसिबल तो खुद ही फाइनल ट्रूथ हो गया, राइट. नथिंग कैन बी नोन, नॉट इवन दिस. दिस इज वॉट दे फेमसली सेड, नथिंग कैन बी नोन, नॉट इवन दिस. हम ये भी नहीं बोल सकते कि नथिंग कैन बी नोन, हमें पता ही नहीं कि वो नो करा भी जा सकता है, नहीं करा जा सकता. ठीक है, इज दिस क्लियर? क्या कह रहे हैं ये? सो नथिंग कैन बी नोन, नॉट इवन दिस. This is how. And okay, he was one of the founders, Pyrrho of Elis. Now again see, we are putting the name of the person. And ये थोड़ा सा मजाक उड़ा रहे हैं स्केप्टिसिज्म का इस कार्टून में. So basically this person is not saying that we have not met. Okay, ये ऐसे नहीं बोल रहा ना, देखो we have not met, फाइनल ट्रूथ नहीं दे रहा कुछ भी. I don't believe we have met, uncertain. अब ये क्या बोल रहा है पलट के, I don't believe you don't believe we have met. So काफ़ी अनसर्टनिटी रहती है स्केप्टिक्स की लाइफ में. ओके, I don't believe we have met, I don't believe you don't believe we have met. All right, कुछ भी सर्टिनिटी से नहीं बोलेंगे. एंड दिस इज समथिंग दैट आई हैव एनकाउंटर्ड स्पेशली इन द UK. People are very accustomed to making such statements that a skeptic will approve of. For example, when there were times when I would ask the way that, you know, whether this train will go here or not, and almost everybody would say it should. I think it should, at least it goes there every day. So they would give me such answers and I would be like, yaar bata de, ja rahi hai nahi ja rahi hai, jati hai nahi ja rahi hai. They would be like, it should, at least it goes there every day. So such statements, yeah. Now the last one for the day, Neoplatonism. Yes, new. अच्छा, ये guess करो, प्लेटोनिज्म कहाँ से आया होगा ये टर्म? प्लेटो से आया है ये, है ना. सो बेसिकली इट्स अ रिवाइवल ऑफ प्लेटोनिज्म इन अ वे, और एन अडेप्टेशन ऑफ प्लेटोनिज्म, राइट. सो प्लेटो की फिलॉसफी को हम प्लेटोनिज्म कहते हैं, एरिस्टोटल की फिलॉसफी को एरिस्टोटलियनिज्म कहते हैं. तो जिसमें इज्म तो कहीं भी लगा दो आप, राइट. सो नियो प्लेटोनिज्म मीन्स न्यू प्लेटोनिज्म, बेसिकली डेवलप्ड आउट ऑफ प्लेटोज वर्क बाय दिस अदर गाय नेम्ड प्लॉटिनस. ओके, ये कुछ ऐसे एक फिलॉसफी नहीं है, इट्स सिंक्रेटिक. सिंक्रेटिक मीन्स अ नंबर ऑफ डिफरेंट फिलॉसफीज वर मर्ज्ड इनटू दिस लेबल नियो प्लेटोनिज्म. सो बेसिकली इन्होंने क्या किया कि प्लेटो को लिया और उसमें जो ईस्टर्न वर्ल्ड का मिस्टिसिज्म था ना, दैट यू नो देर इज़ अ हायर गॉड और देर इज़ अ वन and we can unite with this one through surrender, through meditation, through contemplation. वो वाले आइडियाज़ इन्होंने प्लेटो की फ़िलॉसफी में ये ले आए. जैसे प्लेटो ने क्या कहा था कि कुछ आइडियल फॉर्म्स होती हैं, राइट. जैसे कि एक आइडियल कॉन्सेप्ट है जस्टिस का, जो हमारी ये सेंसरी रेल्म में नहीं है, पर तुम इंटेलेक्ट से ना पहुंच सकते हो, इंटेलेक्ट से तुम इसको जान सकते हो. तो प्लेटो ने क्या बोला, आप अपने इंटेलेक्ट से, रीज़न से जान सकते हो. ये लोग इसमें थोड़ा सा रिलीजन ले आए. इन्होंने कहा कि आप सरेंडर से, कॉन्टेम्पलेशन से इस गॉड लाइक चीज़ को जान सकते हो. गॉड नहीं बोला वन बोल दिया, राइट. सो सारी चीज़ें इस वन से ही निकल कर आई हैं. हम ह्यूमन बींग, ये पूरा सेंसरी वर्ल्ड, ये कहाँ से आया अल्टीमेटली? इस वन से ही आया. और ये सारी चीज़ें वापस जा सकती हैं वहाँ पे ट्रांसेंडेंस के थ्रू. ट्रांसेंडेंस बेसिकली जब आप बिल्कुल सरेंडर कर दोगे अपने आप को, कॉन्टेम्पलेट करोगे, तो एक आपको एक्सटैटिक एक्सपीरियंस होगा व्हेन यू विल फील यूनाइटेड विद द वन. दैट्स व्हाट दे सेड. सो इट्स अ सॉर्ट ऑफ अ रिटर्न ऑफ द रिलीजन in philosophy. They started by separating themselves from religion, but here Hellenistic and Roman periods, they saw a return of the religion which was further solidified in the medieval period, जिसके बारे में हम नेक्स्ट क्लास में बात करेंगे. ठीक है. यस, प्लेटो एरिस्टोटल का टीचर था. एब्सोल्युटली. सो Neoplatonism, Skepticism, Epicureanism and Stoicism, these were your philosophies of which period? Hellenistic and Roman periods. So what we have discussed today are the major philosophies of this period from the 7th century BCE as it is called today to 5th century. अब हम AD में आ गए. इसको आजकल हम कॉमन एरा बोलते हैं, राइट? CE. So right, so this is what I wanted to discuss with you. Just brief descriptions of what these philosophies are, what do these people are actually saying, and in case you've read Sophie's World, I'm sure you would be aware of many of these things. Okay, this is in case you haven't. Okay, so these sessions are going to help you. So these are the ancient philosophers. अब देखो modern philosophers. Xavier uncle आ गए. Life is soup, I am fork. Right? Thank you so much. Thank you. And I will see you on Friday now. Okay, at 5 p.m. Now let's keep this Friday session a practice session. इसमें प्रैक्टिस करेंगे, ठीक है? RC और BA इसमें कुछ प्रैक्टिस करेंगे. And next week again we will return to talk about our medieval and modern philosophies. Okay. Welcome. Bye bye. See you.